I'll say first, thanks for having me. I am really excited to be here and to talk with all of you and to share more about my campaign and who I am. I think there's a lot of folks that are on the call who already know about me and know my story. I'll give you the brief kind of 30-second rundown of who I am. I am an infectious disease doctor. I'm running for Congress in Massachusetts against a 9-term incumbent who is somebody who is pro-life, voted against the Affordable Care Act, has really stood on the wrong side of almost every single issue in his 9 terms in office, and yet still caucuses with the Democrats and calls himself a Democrat. We launched this campaign back in November, talking about healthcare, but really trying to broaden the conversation and trying to say that healthcare is a human right, certainly, but healthcare is about more than an insurance card in everyone's pocket. Healthcare is about people having financial security. Healthcare is about people having food security. Healthcare is about people having housing security. And as we've gone through this campaign, that has become incredibly clear to all of us as we're living through COVID and living through this crisis. As I was picking up steam in this primary, I had an amazing opportunity to talk to the Yang Gang here in Massachusetts, to move on and talk with folks at Humanity Forward, and eventually have a conversation with Andrew that really changed a lot of this campaign in many ways. It changed our messaging, it changed our mission, it changed our place on the national map. And it has been amazing to ride the wave with all of you. So thank you for people who have already joined us, people who have done some phone banking and text banking, and who have helped us get out word about this campaign. What we wanted to share tonight, and I'm joined by Gray, who is one of our amazing field organizers on the team, was share a few ways that you can get involved with the campaign and where you can learn more about it. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that people have tonight in the chat at any point, but there's a ton of information online at our website, robbieforchange.com. There is a link to make a donation. We are obviously running a grassroots campaign against a long-term incumbent who has $1.5 million in his war chest, and trying to build as much as we can in our own financial resources. There's a link here for an ad that talks about the campaign that I will say we created 2 weeks before the COVID crisis, which is why you don't see anyone wearing a mask. But it was the last time we were really able to be out and about with folks. There's an interview here that I did with Nerds for Humanity, a Reddit AMA that I did, where you can learn some more information about me and some of the questions that people ask. And I think most importantly, probably to Gray, who's on the call, there are links to sign up for our phone banking shifts and to join our volunteer force. We are really trying to make sure we're canvassing folks in a safe way, given COVID. I'm an infectious disease doc. I'm not going to put anyone at risk, make anyone knock on any doors. And so the best way that we can get the message out to individual voters is to make phone calls. We have some pretty high goals of making 200,000 phone calls before the September 1st primary. We are on track. We are going to make it there, but it's going to take a lot of us all working together to do that. So if anyone would like to join us or knows others that would want to join us, this is the best way to sign up for our phone banking shifts. I think there's one other slide, if you don't mind going to the next one, which is just a slide with all of the coalition of endorsers that we have pulled together in this campaign, sort of led by Andrew Yang and Humanity Forward. With many people, we're having a broad conversation about a progressive agenda, what it means to live a healthy life in this country at this time. And I have been really sort of inspired by each of these endorsers and humbled by all of these endorsers to see that there's so much broad support for this campaign and for someone who is taking on an established incumbent. So there's a lot of folks on here, a lot of things that I could talk about, but I'll maybe, depending on how much time we have, open it up and say I welcome any questions that people have.
While people are raising their hands, we had a question on Twitter earlier today in response to this getting posted. That is just an open-ended question about your feelings about the future of remote work possibilities and public transit in a post-COVID America.
I think that we have let this genie out of the bottle and we can't get it back in. And so I think that there's going to be a segment of our economy that will exist in a work from home environment. Now that it may be a hybrid model, it may not be that everyone will work from home all the time, but we were sort of on this track. If you think about what was happening in corporate America for the past 20 years, we were on this track of open floor plans and everyone sort of working in a sort of open space, everyone working together. And that's not going to work with COVID. And I'm not sure how soon people are going to feel comfortable doing that again. So I think we're in a space where people are going to be working from home, which means that we're going to need to invest in the right space over the next year, right? We have to invest in technology. We have to invest in high-speed internet all across this country, certainly in areas of the country that don't have access. We have to sort of build up our security, our cybersecurity, and make sure that when people are working from home, they're able to access what they need to access in a very safe and secure manner. We're going to have to think of new technologies that allow us to do the jobs that we used to do maybe in person, but now that we're going to do in a work from home environment. And that's going to tie in some ways to the second part of that question, which is transportation, right? The commuting that we've been doing for so long, getting in our cars and driving from one place to the next, getting on public transportation, that's all going to change if we're working from home. And it gives us an opportunity to think critically about where we invest in transportation. Can we invest in more local options like bike routes and sidewalks? Can we invest in the transportation that's going to, if we're working from home, that's going to benefit us in our local communities, and not think about these enormous projects that might actually add to the number of cars on the road. And so, I think we have a huge opportunity before us. I have said a lot about the COVID crisis. Shame on us if we go back to what we had before, because what we had before was broken. So it is our opportunity right now. It is our time to think better, to think bigger, to think bolder about what it should look like and how we can get there.
Oh, so I see a couple hands.
Like,
yeah, I'm not sure who it is.
So we've got Colleen, then Brendan, then Catherine.
Yeah, hi, Robbie. So when you say that housing is part of a total, holistic healthcare system, from the federal level, what would be the housing policies that you would push for? Because a lot of housing is really, it's a local policy, yes. But it's something that people keep looking to, the federal government to take care of, because it's something really so overwhelming, and it's a hard fight at the local level. So how would you lead at the national level with federal policy?
Yeah, you're right. There's so much of housing is actually under municipal and state control, and they have a lot of say in how affordable housing is developed, in which communities and in what way. But there are certain levers that the federal government has through HUD, through Housing and Urban Development. And one of those is something that actually happened in the House a couple of weeks ago, but we need to push it forward. It's unlikely to pass this Senate. We're going to have to deal with it in the next Congress, which is the repeal of the Faircloth Amendment. It really limits the federal government from investing in affordable housing. It basically has a one-in, one-out policy, meaning we have a set number of affordable houses at the federal level, and we can't build any more unless we destroy ones that already exist. So that actually really limits the federal government from investing in affordable housing and partnering with states and municipal governments to build more units and to make sure they're being built in the right places. But I also think there's a piece of this in terms of housing that is about adaptation and efficiency in our current housing that exists. We could very easily at the federal level mandate that federally funded and federally what's in the federal jurisdiction in terms of affordable housing has increased efficiency when it comes to heat and air conditioning, is adapted to manage the changing climate and what's going to happen in our environment, in our environmental policy. And that all should be included in part of our housing policy. It is about an investment in safe, affordable, and healthy housing for everyone.
Thanks, Robbie. If I could, I'll just launch into my question. But, with climate change, we've seen that the Democrats are coming on board for a Green New Deal, which is so exciting for those of us that prioritize environmental policy. But, no one's perfect. If you get in Congress, your voice can add a lot to the conversation. what direction do you think that conversation needs to go so that we have evidence-based and reasonable climate change policy?
So the one thing I love about the Green New Deal, and that I think we need to make sure is part of all policy, is the urgency that the Green New Deal puts on this policy. And it really says, we've got to do it now. We don't have time to wait. We don't have any time to waste in this experience. We need to actually make changes, and in 10 years, see the benefits of those changes. And I think that's a really important part. The piece that I think we also have to remember and think about is that no matter what we do, even if we pass the Green New Deal and we have an unbelievable turnaround in our overall climate policy, we are still going to see a 1 to 2 meter sea level rise in this country in 40 to 50 years. We're still going to see increasing temperatures across the globe in 40 to 50 years. And so there needs to be, and there is some of this in the Green New Deal, but I'm not sure there's enough. There needs to be more in that adaptation and that management space, in the idea of how do we deal with roads that are going to collapse because the temperatures are going to increase? How do we deal with homes that are along shores that are going to get washed over? And how do we invest in the adaptation piece that's going to keep us all safe with these inevitable, unavoidable changes because of what's happened over the past 50 years in our climate policy? And then I think one of the things about the Green New Deal is that it's part of a broader resolution. And we don't talk about it as much, but the Green New Deal itself is an act, and it's a piece of legislation that talks about climate. It's part of this broad resolution that Senator Markey and Representative Ocasio-Cortez pulled together, talking about the fact that healthcare and environmental policy are linked, jobs and environmental policy are linked, financial security and environmental policy are linked. And so we need to actually broaden the discussion and make sure that people know when they're voting for the Green New Deal, they should be voting for this bigger resolution that is about moving forward with the entire agenda, to make sure that not only do we have a planet that's inhabitable and safe, but that we're living a healthy life, and that we bring equity and we bring all of the other justice pieces into that discussion.
Thank you.
Cool. The weather's getting weird. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Catherine. We're a little bit over times too, so this will be the last question, and then Robbie, feel free to hang around and talk and chat or do whatever you choose.
Could we let Andrew ask his as well? I think we're doing fairly decent on time right now.
Okay, so quick question. I had seen that your parents had a small business when you were growing up, and kind of what you took from that, kind of working in your parents' family business when you were young. And then just if for potential phone bankers, you might talk about, what are the salient issues for people in all of these south of Boston communities that have them, because I think a lot of people who are outside of Massachusetts don't realize that even though it's broadly Democratic, there's so much variation in what it means to be a Democrat in Massachusetts, that there's a lot of very conservative Democrats that we're going to be calling.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for bringing up the piece about my parents. They'll be happy that it was brought up on the call, but also it is a really big part of who I am and how I was raised. I would go to they had a dental practice. My mom managed it and did all the books. My dad did the dentistry, and my sister and I basically did all the rest of the work in the office, because we would be there after schools every weekend, all summer long. And it really informed my position on communities and what it means to exist in a community and care for a community. And it's why I'm a doctor, and it's why I'm trying to work so hard to talk about communities in this campaign. But to address that second part about the district, people can see on this map that's on the screen right now, it's a big district with 24 cities and towns. They're very diverse in their political beliefs and ideology. I do think that they all share certain democratic values: fighting for healthcare, fighting for financial security, fighting for reproductive justice. But some of these are conservative areas and more conservative or moderate Democrats. And I think I find the easiest thing to try to connect in with them about is to talk about some of those sort of bedrock principles of this campaign, making sure people can live a healthy life, understanding that health is broader than just the insurance card, that it's about financial security, it's about housing stability, it's about food security. And when I begin to do that and broaden out that conversation, people tend to sort of stop asking me the questions about single payer healthcare or things that may feel too far to the left to them for some reason, and instead talk about our shared goals and our shared values.
Thank you. And then Andrew, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So in the state of Massachusetts, there's almost 1 million plus students enrolled in the public education system. And just in Boston alone, there's 150,000 undergraduate students in the metropolitan area. So what policies are you going to push for, if elected to Congress, that will benefit students and assist the education system?
Yeah, you're like smack on with that question, because we're sort of this hub for education. There are so many students. Many of them live in this district, just given where the universities and the colleges are. I think fundamentally, the number one thing that we have to do is fix the broken student loan situation in this country. And that is going to require many different plans and policies to push forward. There's going to be a lot that we need to do. I think the first is we have to address those people who recently graduated and are sitting with thousands of dollars of student loan debt, and make sure that those people have student loan debt forgiveness. Certainly that they have debt forgiveness for people who went to for-profit colleges and are now at the end of their college experience and have nothing to show for it. But we also have to fix the fundamental problem underneath that, right? Which is that college is not affordable. And it should be clear, just like healthcare is a human right, education is also a human right and should be guaranteed to everyone in this country. So we can do that by guaranteeing everyone access to a public college education at no cost to them. But we can also do that by guaranteeing people access to other types of education. Not everyone needs to or wants to go to a 4-year college and get that degree. Some people want to go to a community college. Some people want to go to a vocational school. Some people want to be part of an apprenticeship program. And our federal government should be investing in all of those programs to make sure that there's access for everybody to get the education they need and they want, so that when they're done, they can go on and do whatever it is they want to do, right? Right now, we have made certain jobs, certain positions, certain activities in this country inaccessible because of how inaccessible our education system is for people after their K through 12 education.